Hey everyone, it's Mariana, and today I'm going to be talking about 3 recently released thrillers: Hush, The Wave, and The Invitation. All 3 of those are pretty easy to find online. I will talk about where you can find them currently, and I do believe The Invitation is the only one that is currently in some theaters. 2 of these movies are more on the horror side of the spectrum. I'm talking about Hush and The Invitation, but all 3 I would consider to be thrillers. First, let's talk about Hush. A few of you wanted me to review this movie, so here we go. And it was released on Netflix on April 8th, so it is currently available if you have a Netflix subscription. For some reason, they didn't do a theatrical release for this one, but you know, you can stream it at home and not be distracted by annoying moviegoers. This film was directed by Mike Flanagan, who also directed Oculus, which is a pretty underrated horror film. It's not amazing, but it is pretty good and it has some interesting ideas, and I would say Hush is kind of the same way, except for it's not supernatural or anything like Oculus is. It is a home invasion thriller / horror film with the added twist of the victim being a deaf woman. The main character, Maddie, is an author. She lost her hearing when she was a teenager, and now she lives and writes in this secluded cottage in the woods, and in this film, she is stalked by this masked killer. She's definitely a likable character, and she's pretty easy to root for because she seems like a nice, genuine person, but also she's smart and resourceful. She doesn't fall apart in this situation. She's definitely a fighter, so I did really like her, but however, I did not really love the villain because he seems to be pretty one-dimensional. He doesn't really get any kind of backstory. We don't find out why he is the way he is. He's pretty much just one of those villains who don't really have a specific motivation, but they are there because they want to kill this person for some unknown reason. But before they kill them, they really want to mess with them because that's fun, I guess. I did really like that the movie does not rely on jump scares at all. I can't really remember there being any jump scares in this film, at least not the obvious cheap jump scares, and it is much more invested in building tension and getting you interested that way. I was definitely into the story. I wanted to see how everything ended. I cared about the lead character. The only negative, other than the villain being pretty weak for me, was the fact that the foreshadowing in the beginning was pretty heavy-handed. If you've seen thrillers and horror movies before, you can kind of figure out where things are going because it really draws your attention as the viewer to specific things. An example of that, and this isn't really a spoiler, is when Maddie's friend comes over in the beginning, we get this really close-up shot of her walking towards the house and putting a phone in her back pocket. And you can just tell that this is either the most random butt shot in the film, or this is going to come into play later, and it does. Like I said, this isn't really a spoiler because that shot is just really obvious, but that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, and it's not like it took me out of the movie, but it's there and you can tell it's there for a reason. So in general, I definitely enjoyed Hush, and even though it didn't exactly reinvent the wheel, it is still a solid home invasion thriller, and if you are into that and if you are in the mood for a thriller, definitely check this out on Netflix. I think it is worth watching, even though it's not particularly groundbreaking. Next, I wanted to talk about The Wave. This is a movie that I missed in theaters. It had some kind of limited release in March, I believe, but it is currently available to rent online, places like iTunes, Amazon. I rented it on Amazon, and I actually really enjoyed this one. This is a Norwegian disaster film set in this small, beautiful town in Norway that has a history of rock slides, and when the rock slides happen and all these rocks fall into the fjord, they can have a bit of a tsunami problem. And of course, as you can tell by the title, The Wave, tsunami happens. I have to say the pacing and the structure of this movie really worked for me. At first, we're introduced to the lead characters, and I would say all of the characters, almost all of the characters in this movie are really likable and they have nice chemistry. I believed the family dynamic, I believed the work dynamic. Then there is the disaster section of the movie, which is pretty impressive considering that their budget was like $6.5 million. It looks great and I really wish I saw it on the big screen. And then afterwards there is the aftermath section, which also works, and you can definitely tell that there's a 3-act structure going on, but it works. It really is effective here. I did wish that the middle part, which is where all of the craziness happens, was a little bit longer because it was so well done and I was definitely enjoying it because it was scary. It was legitimately stressing me out, which, you know, on a small screen with a disaster movie, it's pretty impressive. On the other hand, being a disaster film, The Wave definitely has some of those disaster movie cliches, and it does put an interesting spin on some of them, but then there are a few others that are kind of expected, but nothing that really bothered me too much. And the setting is absolutely gorgeous. The location of this small town is beautiful and I loved the way everything looked in general. Overall, I have to say The Wave, even though it isn't perfect, is my favorite film out of the 3 that I'm talking about today. Now, I do have kind of a soft spot for disaster movies. Not to say that I like any disaster movie that I see, but it's a genre I enjoy, so naturally I'm a little bit biased towards it, but if you're somebody who enjoys good disaster movies, you cannot miss this one because this is definitely very well done and very enjoyable. And the last movie that I'm talking about today is The Invitation. This is directed by Karen Kusama, who directed Jennifer's Body and a few other things. This movie is currently in limited release in some theaters, but it is also available on video on demand, and once again I watched it on Amazon. This is a psychological thriller slash horror film, and it revolves around this really weird and awkward dinner party that goes all kinds of wrong. In the beginning, we meet Will and his girlfriend who are going to the dinner party at Will's ex-wife's house, which is a strange concept because why would you be going there? And then once they show up, they realize that things are more awkward than they thought it would be, but for some reason they stay, and the movie kind of goes from there. What I really loved about this movie is the atmosphere and the soundtrack. As far as the atmosphere and the soundtrack and the general tone goes, The Invitation is definitely superior to the other 2 movies that I talked about, but it is also the least well-paced out of the 3. The pacing is the main issue in The Invitation, and for a lot of it is just really slowly building up at this awkward dinner party. Now, the last 20 to 30 minutes are great. They are awesome and they kind of make the wait worth it, but I really wish that it was better paced. The characters in this film aren't particularly likable. They're not meant to be likable because this dinner party is meant to be super awkward, but it really made me question why the lead character Will was even at this dinner party. I can understand that maybe he was trying to be an adult and go to this dinner party with his girlfriend to communicate with his ex-wife, to put everything behind whatever happened to them, which you find out what happened and it's pretty crazy. But once they get there and they realize how awkward and strange it is, why did they stay? Why didn't they leave? They didn't even try to leave, which was really bizarre. This is also the kind of film that kind of confuses you in the beginning and just keeps throwing things at you that are strange, along with some flashbacks that are meant to make sense later. And it does all make sense later, but like I said, because of the really slow pacing, it's kind of tedious in some points. Overall, as far as my enjoyment goes and as far as how interested I was in the story as I was watching the film, I would say The Invitation is the least favorite of the 3, but as a whole, it definitely comes together because of the last 20 to 30 minutes. So if you are into slow building psychological thrillers that are really good with the atmosphere and the tone, I think this is worth checking out. But if you don't have much patience when it comes to plot, this may frustrate you a little bit. In general, I would say all three of these movies cater to their audience as well. If you like fast-paced home invasion thrillers, you should check out Hush. If you like disaster movies, you will not be disappointed by The Wave. And if you enjoy slow building, more psychological thrillers, definitely check out The Invitation. For me, like I said, The Wave was my most favorite and The Invitation was my least favorite, but I can easily recommend all three for fans of the specific genres. And if you enjoy thrillers in general, you can just blindly choose one of those, whichever one sounds more interesting to you. If I were to rate these movies, personally, I would give The Wave 4 out of 5 stars, and then Hush and The Invitation 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'm kind of trying to step away from the ratings a little bit at the moment until I come up with a more unique alternative rating system. So if you have any ideas for that and you would like to share them with me, please let me know in the comments below, because I definitely need help in that department. But on a personal scale, The Wave 4 out of 5, the other two 3.5 out of 5. That's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, let me know if you've seen any of these movies and what did you think of them, and also let me know what some of your favorite thrillers are that you consider to be kind of underrated. Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!